Who is Clara James? It's a long story, and I'm never really sure how much of this story to tell. But oops, let me show my screen. But basically, Clara James is my oldest two children, and then the logo is an angel, which is my youngest child. Back in 2010, when I started the tutoring business, it was called Star Tutoring. But in 2019, when we wanted to franchise the business, I had to get the name trademarked, and I couldn't trademark the name Star. It was too much like another business name. So I had to change it, and I wanted to keep it personal because I wanted the name to portray that we were a personal business and we offered personal care. No, we offered one-to-one care. We cared about you as an individual. So the business name became Clara, my oldest daughter, as I say, Jamie, my son, and then Angel, my youngest daughter. When I was 19, I never know quite how much of this story to tell. So if I'm talking too much, then please do feel free to fast forward past this. But when I was 19, I got married. At 21, just before my 21st birthday, Clara was born. 2 years later, 18 months later, along came Jamie. And then 2 years, almost to the day, along came Angel. By the time Angel was born, we were living up in Yorkshire, and we came back down here to Buckinghamshire to see friends. And when I realised what other people in my year group at school had achieved, I decided that I wanted to do something the same, because my dad died not long after I started my A-levels, and my motivation just completely left me. I no longer felt inspired. And so my A-levels were a disaster. And then when I left school, so I'm at sixth form, I got a job working in the ambulance control room, and then I left there because it didn't suit the married life I was leading. And I then just got I got a job as a receptionist, and then Clara was born, and after that I just got part-time jobs that fitted in around the kids. But when we came back down here and I saw what others had achieved, maybe it was a very young midlife crisis, but that was when I decided that I was going to do something. And so I went and asked Mary, the lady who ran the local playgroup that Clara went to, if she'd mind if I went in as a volunteer while I studied for my diploma in preschool practice. And yep, she agreed. And I think her agreeing changed my life. Within a couple of months, they asked me if I'd be willing to become the Senko and also take on the responsibility for doing the policies and planning for the setting. I think possibly it was more because no one else wanted to do it, but it gave me a confidence boost. And when I finished my diploma, I then decided that I wanted to do more. So I then did my degree through the Open University in childcare and education. And I can remember not long after I started, I was really proud of what I was doing. And someone asked me what it was I was studying, and I kind of said childcare and education. Oh, didn't they could do a degree in changing nappies? And that was one of those things that stuck with me, because as I was kind of like doing my degree, and I was working at the time in a local primary school, and I was also working in a hostel for children who had profound autism and couldn't cope in mainstream schools. And when I kind of like thought of comments like that, it sometimes is what you need to give you the kick up the backside to kind of like go, yeah, I can do this. I don't care what you think. Anyway, over the coming years, I worked in the mainstream school in the reception class for children. In a reception class, I was there to help the teacher. There were 4 children in that class which had been diagnosed with ADHD. And it was eye-opening, to be honest. I also worked in the autism residential hostel. I worked in the mainstream schools. I worked as an MVQ assessor. I worked as a childminder, and my experience grew. But when Clara started secondary school, I thought she might be mildly dyslexic. And I went to her class teacher and said, what were their thoughts? And they basically said, well, dyslexia is an excuse for laziness. So there's no problem. But, okay. And I didn't have the confidence to kind of like fight my corner. So alongside doing my degree, I decided that I'd learn as much as I could about different learning styles and learning techniques and dyslexia in general. And over the years, I learned as much as I could. I read as much as I could. And I was, through all this experience I was having in so many different settings, it was fantastic. So when sorry, when I just wrote my first profile as a tutor, I wasn't sure what was expected. So I just kind of said, this is my background. And a friend and I sat down and brainstormed what, if we wanted a tutor for our own children, what would we expect? And so kind of we put that in there as well. And that was basically the founding thoughts of the business. It was, what would I want for a tutor for my own child, combined with everything I'd learnt over the previous 10 years. And basically what I'd learned was, if we're relaxed, we're more inclined to take in the information that's being given to us. If we do one thing, so for example, a worksheet, we absorb a bit of that information. If we do another similar worksheet, that memory gets stronger. So if we keep doing worksheets, we're making that memory stronger and stronger, but our brain still only has one place to go to find the information that it needs. And so if we're sat in an exam or something and our brain isn't functioning logically, or if we have a learning difficulty such as dyslexia or something, then we don't necessarily think in a linear fashion. So our brain's busy shooting around looking for the information, and the odds of it finding it are actually quite small. So what we need to do is, for example, if we're learning times tables, what we might do is we might do a snakes and ladders game, and each square on the board has a different question on it. We might have a pairs game, and you turn over 2 cards and each card will have a question and an answer. If they correspond, you keep them and have another go. If they don't, then you put them back and the other person has a go. Or we might do certain amounts of worksheets, or we might do, if we're doing comprehension or something, we might, instead of asking them to tell us or write about something they learned from that passage or what this person looked like or something, we'd actually ask them to draw and label it. And the reason for doing this is, each time we're doing something new, we're creating a new memory. And so as we're sat there in this kind of stress situation, our brain's now got more places to go to find the information that it needs. And I presume that was how everyone did things these days, because that's what I'd been learning. That's what I'd been experiencing in early years, predominantly, and special needs settings. And so I just presumed that education had moved on and this was now the norm. But evidently it wasn't. And when I first started the business, I was even more shy and timid than I am now. And I thought, okay, I don't want to tell anyone I'm doing this, because if I fail, I don't want them to judge me. But within 6 months, so many people had found out what we were doing and how we were doing it, that I gave up my full-time job, and this became my main focus. Within 18 months, there was more work than I could cope with. So I started taking people on, but I did it more as an agency. And what would happen is, someone would ring up and I'd say, yep, I know this person, they might be able to help you. And during that time, Jamie was doing his A-levels, and for some reason he'd missed a lesson. And I asked one of these blokes that I'd been recommending if he'd be willing to spend an hour with Jamie going over whatever it was to do with economics. Yeah, that's fine, no problem. He came along with a pen. He charged £50 an hour, and this is going back a few years now. So £50 was significantly more now then than it is now, and it's still quite a large amount now. Turned up with a pen and said, okay, what would you like to talk about? And Jamie kind of said, well, it's this. He said, okay, well, what do you know? And Jamie said, well, nothing, I missed a lesson. Well, you must know something, tell me what you know. And the hour just consisted of this chap trying to find out from Jamie what he knew, but Jamie didn't know anything about it because he'd missed a lesson. So I then realized that this person I had recommended, and if people thought I felt that sort of tutoring was acceptable, then I could ruin my reputation. And at the same time, Angel was doing her GCSEs, and she's a phenomenally clever child, but she's also wasn't that motivated to revise. So what I thought was, if I found someone who would just spend an hour or 2 a week working with her, then at least I know she's done a couple of hours a week revision. And he came along with his textbook. He would read to her from the textbook and then ask her to answer the questions at the bottom of the page, which as a parent, I'm sat there thinking, well, I could do that myself. So again, and then as a business owner, you're sat there thinking, again, if people think this is what I deem to be acceptable, my reputation could be in shatters. So I stopped recommending other people and went back to trying to do everything myself. And then when Jay finished his A-levels, he declared he was going to get a one-way ticket to Australia, and he left for Australia for 6 months. And at that time, I suddenly realized that if he's now gone, Clara's also left home. Angel's going to be leaving home soon as well. So if I don't sort my life out and stop working 7 days a week, I'm going to see nothing of her and she's going to have left. So I decided at that stage that I would start employing other tutors, that this time I would actually employ them and I'd say, this is how we do things. And although it sounds awful, I could say as the employer, look, this is how we do it. If you don't like it, this obviously isn't the job for you. So that was how I then progressed and put systems and resources in place. And since that day, the business has just grown so much because I know that I can recommend tutors who are competent and are doing things the Clara James way. And I know that each time I recommend someone, they are going to be a shining light, if you like, for Clara James. And the business has just continued to go from strength to strength. Yes, okay, it's been one or two really. You can't think, oh, what have I done? And I've had to let them go. But it's these systems and these foundations which I'm now offering to you as either a franchisee or a brand associate to help you build what I know can be a really successful business. Over the last few years, we've been nominated in national award ceremonies for best customer service. We were also nominated for getting things done. This week it's the end of the GCSEs, and the number of letters of appreciation and presents I've been given, because the way we do things really works and it really makes a difference to the child's, not only their knowledge but also their confidence. And if you've resonated with what I've been saying and you're interested in finding out more, please do give me a call or email me at info@clarajamstutoring.co.uk.